Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure a few more people will join. This happens every time I start getting all these texts. People can't find the Zoom link. So I'm gonna have to get everybody tuned in here. My name is Robin Huff, and I'm your host here for the next hour and a half. I'm the current president of the Women's Democratic Club. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. I'm not sure how all of you are feeling, but we were talking before. I just feel like I have been sucker punched. I think after the convention and after Roe v. Wade, it's and after the protest, and we've got more protests to come. We will not give up. But there are times when we just have to take care of ourselves, and make sure that we stay strong so that we have got the passion and the energy to do what we know has got to be done. And there's a lot coming up. So today we have a new board member. We're going to introduce her. We're going to hear from Carrie Galloway. She's the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Utah. Carrie, thank you so much. We are not worthy. Just can't wait to hear from you, Carrie. And then we're going to hear from some candidates. If you are a candidate and you have already introduced yourself to this group, please feel free to put all your information in the chat, particularly your donate button. And everybody on this call, you feel free to click that button and donate to a candidate that you like. You don't have to donate to a candidate running in your district. Find a candidate that you like and donate to them. And then we're going to have our speakers. We've got terrific speakers here from the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. Bart Forsyth is with us, and we're going to have Jamie from the Great Salt Lake Institute, and that's just going to be wonderful to hear from her. Two really big concerns that we have. I'm going to kick it off to just let all of you know we have a new board member, and I'm so excited. And I'm going to ask Katie Owens, who is our vice president. I'm going to ask Katie to introduce our new board member.
Hey, thanks, Robin. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce our new program director, Lisa Yoder. And I saw Lisa there, although it looks like she's on her phone or in the car on her phone. So thank you, Lisa, and welcome. Just want to talk a little bit about Lisa. She's the former sustainability manager of Summit County. She has a deep knowledge of public land issues and natural resource management. So we're looking forward to putting some of her expertise to use and her connections to get us some great speakers at future luncheons. She also recently ran for a state Senate seat, and we would really like to see her run again in the future. So we're really excited to have Lisa as our new program manager. Welcome, Lisa.
Lisa,
thank you.
You want to say a few words?
I'm just happy to be here. As mentioned, I am driving home to get on this meeting, but I'm delighted to be joining the ranks of some really awesome women, and glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We are thrilled to have you.
And I would put her bio in the chat, but I'm trying to copy and paste. It's not working, and it might just be too long.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
see what happens.
We'll have to send that impressive bio out, Lisa. And I did send Lisa a message this last week and told her that I wanted the Women's Democratic Club to have a sustainability plan. So we're going to work on that, Lisa. We need to lead out on that, okay? All right. We're going to lead out. We are so fortunate today, given everything that has happened this last week, to have Carrie Galloway with us. I'm going to give Carrie some time to get us up to speed. Tell us about this trigger bill that will become law when Roe v. Wade is overturned, and how Planned Parenthood is going to continue to serve the women and men in our state. Carrie, it's all yours, girl.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you all for giving me a little time today. I don't want to take too much time because water is pretty darn important too. And so what I want to say is, if any of you are like myself or Robin, you feel the sucker punch. I have to believe that it's only a draft. I have to keep taking deep breaths and remember it's only a draft, but it is certainly a harbinger of what they're thinking and what they would like to do. And we at Planned Parenthood though we put on happy faces and we always go for the win, we've been realizing that the doom and gloom are out there. And for the past 2 years, we've been organizing around the possibility of losing Roe. And though Planned Parenthood of Utah are realists and know that we used to be on the forefront of the trap laws, the rest of the states have gotten into the game. We have some plans. We have good states east and west of us. We're already dealing with Idaho, who has passed an atrocious bill, and it's hard for the people to know what is legal in Idaho. And the southern part of Idaho comes to our Logan facility, where we provide medical abortion. And we're getting ready. But after doing press this week and doing our large rally on Tuesday, and we're getting ready for next week where we've got 3 events, I want to say to you, there are still things that can be done. I've seen on this call already Derek Kitchen and Rosemary Lesser. They are 2 great electives who have had bills out there that pay attention to women, people who get pregnant and their families. Derek has done an yeoman's job of trying to expand Medicaid for family planning and has gotten the cold shoulder. Rosemary is just starting and we're learning more, and she wants to provide better maternal care for women and families. One thing that we can do with this rage we have is get behind these legislators with their bills. And heck, I was raised Catholic. Use shame and guilt to get people to realize that if they don't do something positive, they have no moral authority to take away rights from women, people who get pregnant, and families. You can use the rage for good, for the long term. Please talk abortion. It is essential health care. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Make sure that people who you're talking with know that abortion is still legal in Utah, as well as contraception, as well as good sexual health care. Sex is good. Let's make it happy and fun and safe and responsible. We can use our rage to do good and not let people forget that women, people who can get pregnant, families need assistance. And by being out there and honest and just straightforward about abortion being essential health care, you are setting an example for people to be able to talk about this, make it part of the vernacular, and we get rid of the shame, we get rid of the stigma. I have been so heartened this week for everyone who has said, wow, they could really do this, couldn't they? You've been mentioning this, and I just thought you guys would take care of it. I just don't know we can take care of it this time. And we've all got to rise up and hold people accountable. I was doing an interview with Howard Burkus, and he pointed out something Alito had said in his writings, the learned man. And he talked about that the Supreme Court can't be swayed by public opinion, but they better pay attention to accountability. And I think that's what our message has to be. If you're going to take away almost 50 years of precedent, 50 years of people knowing what is law, and wipe it out, you better be accountable for what you're doing. And you better be working. No matter if you've got a day job, you got to do the night job, and working to make sure that our communities can work to make lives better for people. You know, that's all the message I've got for you. It's still draft. It's a harbinger, but it's not real yet. And we can have an impact to get people ready for whatever we're going to face so that we won't be caught flat-footed. We've been joking, because you have to joke in the office when things get like this, that this was a fire drill, and we did pretty good. But we got some holes to fill, and we're working on it. And think of it that way. We are all people committed to good government. We're all people committed to positive communities, healthy families. It's why we're here on a Saturday morning gathering to figure out how to make the world a better place. And we got rage, but use it to good. And Robin, that's all I got to say.
I'll tell you what, Carrie, we got 8 months to get every Republican out of office, and that's our job. We got 8 months to get this done, and we're going to have to get busy and do it. There, everybody on this call, there are people right here who are running for office. Send them a message. Say, I'll help. I'll donate money. Donate money to Planned Parenthood. You must stay engaged. This is a long game, but we cannot afford to quit running with the ball. We can't. We can't. Can you just quickly, Carrie, tell us what the outline of the trigger bill? What would then, because I'm hearing rumors that there might be a special legislative session to run a bill that would give us a 6-week heartbeat bill.
Well, you know, let's talk about the mechanics. If it comes to pass what the draft ruling says, they're going to turn it back to the states with some convoluted baloney. They're turning it back to the states. We know that in 2020, Dan McKay, think of the booze right now, Dan McKay quickly and capriciously put together a trigger bill here in Utah that said if a higher court says Utah can make more restrictive laws, we will make more restrictive laws to the extent we are allowed. And so Planned Parenthood and the ACLU are legal partners in this, went with Brian King to the Legislative Counsel's office, head counsel. They're the ones, the lawyers who work for the legislature, who put together the bills and put the notes on them and all of that sort of stuff. And we asked them, what was the procedure for the trigger bill that we passed in 2020? What the Legislative Council does is then they have to certify that the language that came from the Supreme Court is in line with the language of the trigger bill here in Utah that would allow the legislature to make more restrictive laws. I would suspect, and I would hope, and we all have to make sure that the legislature does not shirk their duty, but they come into session and actually have a discussion about what they want to do to take away our rights. And they better listen to the doctors and the people and the real people of Utah. And I have to say, Planned Parenthood for this just past legislative session paid for Dan Jones' Cicero poll, looking at Utah opinions to abortion, contraception, sex education, similar to the one we did in 2020, because we wanted to know if the results we got in 2020 were holding in 22. It came and it was pretty good. We had only lost a few points on most of the questions, but we didn't have to use it during the legislative session. And so we're still holding on to it, and we will start using it now to let the legislature know what the people of Utah want, what sort of exceptions they want. And this is where all of our rage can be at the Capitol. Now, it doesn't mean they have to do that, but good government would say they better do some accountability on taking away our rights. So that's what will happen in Utah. In some states, the legislature is so rabid that they will, and we saw this in Texas, when the ruling came down, a woman who might have been in a health center in the middle of a procedure, that doctor would have to decide whether to risk their license and continue the procedure or stop it. We spoke to them in the Ledge Council. They don't see Utah being like that. But those are the types of conversations we had this week at Planned Parenthood. If women are in the middle of a procedure, what will we do? Is that doctor going to put their license on the line to complete that procedure? That's the behind the scenes about how horrible this could get. So we, again, have to hold people accountable.
Right.
Robin, Ellen has her hand raised. And
Ellen? Yeah, Ellen, do you have a question? You'll have to unmute. And Ellen, while you're unmuting yourself, I'm going to go ahead and I put in chat the link that is le.utah.gov. Today, I'm going to guilt everybody. Today, before you go to bed tonight, everybody needs to go to that website, figure out who your legislators are if you do not know, and send them a message. Better yet, pick up the phone and call, or, but send them a message. We must act. We have to have a voice in this. Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll actually try to put in a list that I've got of the complete legislature that makes it easy to copy paste everyone. But the question I had and have had for a long time, Utah has an equal rights clause in its constitution. And is that perhaps a hook to force a rollback of some of the restrictions and even of the trigger law? And who, if anyone, is thinking about doing, running that lawsuit?
Do you know, Carrie, if the ACLU is using that?
we have talked about it. Ellen, you bring up a good point. There are, and I don't know if it's a dismissive term, arcane laws that are that have been handed down over time. And we have never had the time or the expertise to look into those. We've discussed them at a real cursory level with the ACLU, but they haven't either. And I know that some states, Montana is a state that's very red, but has some language in their state that has allowed them to get around some things. But Ellen, talk to friends, smart friends, and see if they can come up with ways that we could work some of those angles.
We might have to have the ACLU come and be a speaker, as we get a little bit closer and talk about what that strategy is going to be all about. Does anybody else have a question for Carrie? I know you can understand that her time is really precious right now. So we have her until noon. So are we all good? Okay. Keep up the fight, Carrie.
Hey, all of you, I just can't imagine doing this without having Planned Parenthood's back. And anything you can show up with, we've got 2 say abortion nights, Wednesday and Thursday this week. And next Saturday at this time, we'll be meeting on the Capitol steps again, part of a nationwide day of action all across the country. And we've got to be Utah loud and proud.
Yep.
So see you next Saturday morning.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
All righty. Yeah, we do have those events coming up, and I'll go over those again because there are quite a few events coming up that we can all participate in, and we need to show up at these events. But before that, we have some candidates. I think we have a few candidates who have not introduced themselves to our group in the past. So if that's you, would you put your hand up? Because we would like to get to know you. And I'm going to turn it over to Terry Harekesi to see if we have any brand new candidates with us. Terry?
Yeah, a couple of them identified themselves. Glenn Wright, have you introduced yourself to the women's group yet?
I have not, but I would love to do so.
You have a minute, so feel
All right.
free.
1 minute,
ahead,
very
Glenn.
good. That's almost a little bit less than I had at the state convention last week. Thank you. Honestly, I entered this race at the request of for CD3 at the request of the state party, basically a name on the ballot type candidate. And I was going to emphasize climate change. But I think what has happened in the last week can activate the population enough that we can make this a competitive race. I just got an email from a race in Florida where I used to live, where DeSantis was basically neck and neck with the 2 Democrats that are going to a primary. And they're now up by 14 points in just a few days.
Whoa.
If that happens here in Utah, I'm in a competitive race. I need your support. I need name recognition throughout the district, and I need some money. So my website is on the chat. Please check it and hit the donate button. And I have a Facebook page. Look at my campaign Facebook page, share it. We have to go viral. Thank you for your hopeful support.
Thank you, Glenn. And you have that information in the chat. Everybody, let's help Glenn out. And then Sahara Hayes, you also identified yourself as
Sorry,
someone
I thought we were just saying if you're candidates, I've already introduced myself to the group, so I don't want to take up time from someone else.
Okay, anyone else? Let me change the view here. Anne, have you talked to the Democratic women yet?
No, good morning. Hi.
Go
I'm a little
ahead.
casual this morning. Hi, my name is Ann Schreck. I am running for the House of Representatives, District 53. That's one of the newer districts. So it's North Lehigh and the top part of American Fork. And this is all new to me. This is my first year as a candidate, my first year as a delegate. And so I'm learning a lot and working to connect with the groups that I already am naturally aligned with. So and happy to be here today. So thank you.
And did you put your information for donations and webpage in the chat?
I did. I have my webpage and my link to donations in the chat.
Very good. Very good, Anne. And then I see Dean. You don't look like Dean.
No, that's my last name. My name is Lisa Dean.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so my name is Lisa Dean, and I am running for school board for Jordan School District, District 7. And I'm a math tutor at a junior high school in my district right now. It's a nonpartisan race, but I wanted to introduce myself here. Oh my goodness, and I don't use Zoom. My kids did Zoom classes at a time, and that's why I have a cat back here. Okay. Anyway, so this is the first time I've ever run for an office, but I have walked for a lot of different candidates. And I currently have a sister in the state legislature. Her name is Marcia Judkins, and she's in District 61 in Provo. Anyway, I'm really excited, and any support or and the thing is, I've been to a couple of parents' meetings lately that are really kind of disturbing to me. They have like something in their Parents United, where there are parents who have a lot of fear about curriculum, and it's really hard because they claim that they want parental freedom, but it seems like they want to dictate what other people's children learn in their classes. And the district I'm in is an old decaying district where there's not a lot of growth or development, and there are a lot of immigrants, there are students who are sleeping in cars, there are parents who have 2 jobs, and we just don't have the same concerns as a lot of these other groups. We just want our kids to read a book. We're happy, and we want our kids to engage in thought, and the schools that I represent need a lot of, they just need more support than a lot of other schools, and I really want to represent the students here. Anyway,
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Make sure you put your information in the chat if you have it. And if you don't, then you can join us next time and get it in the chat next time.
Yeah, I don't have a website yet or anything, but my email and phone number are on the candidate list. So.
Okay, you could also put them in our chat. Have one of your kids show you how to put it in the chat.
I know, that's what I need to do. I'm learning. Okay.
We'll remember you as the cat lady.
I know. Oh my goodness. And I do love cats. I just love animals, to be honest. But cats is what we have. So anyway,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I don't see any other hands of new candidates that haven't spoke to our club before. And, we usually allow more speakers, but because we have such a full agenda today, and it's so important that we just thought we would introduce the new candidates today. So back to you, Robin.
All right, thanks. Okay, we're going to go over some upcoming events so that everybody's got this down. There's a Mother's March tomorrow at the Capitol between 2 and 4. The Women's Democratic Club is going to have a table there along with Planned Parenthood. So come, bring your whole family. There's not a starting point or a stopping point. There aren't any speakers. We just need a lot of people to show up and walk around the Capitol. So that's Sunday, that's tomorrow. We'll put the link in the chat and you can get all the information. Carrie said Wednesday and Thursday. I had it Thursday and Friday, but nonetheless, 2 evenings this next week. There will be gatherings up at the Capitol between 6 and 10. Just need people to show up. And then the big march, and this one will be nationwide. So we're hoping it will have kind of the Women's March type of impact and maybe let Justice Roberts rethink things. That's going to be at the Utah State Capitol on the 14th between 2 and 4. So put that on your calendar, plan to be there. On Thursday, May 26th, this is a member only event. It's an evening social. It'll be on Zoom, and we're going to be meeting with Dr. David Christian. I think of him, his program is how to talk so people will listen and listen. So
give her a minute, she'll come back. There you are. You froze up.
Oh, sorry. This will teach, it's techniques to talk to people who don't necessarily agree with your way of thinking, but we need to bring them around. And we're going to have a lot of those conversations. I've asked him to specifically target abortion rights, reproductive rights. And so we're going to be having some discussions about how to talk to people that maybe are not on the same page as we are, because we're going to be having a lot of those discussions. So that's Thursday, May 26th. June 4th and 5th is the Pride Festival. We will have a booth. The WDC will have a booth there. We need some volunteers to help us staff our booth. And we also need some volunteers for tomorrow between 2 and 4. Come by and just help staff our booth. If you can volunteer, I'm putting, Mitch is going to put a link in the email. You can email us and we'll get back with you. And we would really appreciate the help. It's a lot of fun to table. You get to meet so many wonderful people. And last but not least, on June 18th, we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth, which actually happens on Sunday. But June 18th is going to be our first hybrid meeting. We are going to meet in person. We'll be at a park. It's called Crescent Park. We've got a pavilion. It's private. And we are going to be the pre-party for Juneteenth. We've got our very own Representative Sandra Hollins, who's going to speak to us. And we also have Robert Birch. Robert is a historian, and he will be talking to us about slavery in Utah. It's kind of a fascinating history we have. And so it'll be good to hear from Robert, because we need to own it as much as we need to celebrate it. All right. I am going to introduce our speakers, and we have two speakers today. We have Bart Forsyth from the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. I hope I got all that right, Bart. And we also have Jamie Baxter, who's with the Great Salt Lake Institute. I'm going to let Bart speak first. He's going to give us a pretty good overview of what our situation is here in Utah regarding water, and then we're going to zero in and talk about the Great Salt Lake. Bart, I think I made you a co-host. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very much, Robin. And yes, I do have some slides I'd like to share with the group.
Thank you.
So I will see if I can share my screen.
Thanks for joining us on a Saturday.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation for sure. Is that coming up?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, let's see.
You should be able to click that little presentation mode. It's the play button on the left side at the top of the menu that looks like a.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, there it is. Okay. How does that look?
It's small.
It's still small?
Yeah, it's like we have PowerPoint, but the slide is small. There, maybe, oh, no, good. You did it. Great.
Okay, great.
All good.
Very good. Thank you very much. And yeah, so naturally, water has been a very hot topic as of late. It's top of mind, I think, for all of us. We're sort of going through, I would say, the most severe drought in our lifetimes. We're seeing challenges across the state. We're seeing impacts of drought with our reservoir storage across the state. And you know, this year the state legislature took up a lot of water related bills, and I think it was probably a record. and in fact, that's not to mention the record number of water conservation related bills that were brought up. And I think the success rate in water related bills was very high in being passed. And so I was asked to provide a discussion today sort of on a statewide perspective of water supply and water conditions across the state perspective. And so I'll do that, but I also will I'll focus a little bit closer to home too, because I know many of you probably live along the Wasatch Front and probably in Salt Lake County. So to provide some perspective, let me start off with a little bit about Jordan Valley water. Jordan Valley is primarily a wholesale provider of drinking water in Salt Lake County. Our service area includes most of Salt Lake County outside of Salt Lake City and Sandy City. And you can see here on this map, Jordan Valley Water Service Area. And we have 17 member agencies that are noted here that we supply water to. And you'll also see that we have some of the highest growth areas in Salt Lake County, and we're seeing tremendous growth as you might expect. And you'll see that on the right side of this map, Deer Creek and Jordanelle reservoirs. As it turns out, Jordan Valley's primary water supply it resides on the Provo River system. And so we have tremendous storage in Jordanelle and also Deer Creek reservoirs and water rights associated with the Provo River system. About 80% of our water each year is derived through this system. I just wanted to make mention of our Board of Trustees. This is a policy board. We're governed by 9 trustees, each representing geographic areas within Jordan Valley's overall service area. And you may recognize some of the folks on this screen. So let me talk about some of the challenges that there are many, but these are the challenges that I want to cover today. Naturally, we're seeing explosive growth. And as a result, the question is, do we have enough water? With all the new water development needs that we have and infrastructure needs, water districts across the state are trying to figure out how they're going to finance and fund. We have tremendous water conservation goals. We're seeing changing climate conditions, and last but not least, I want to talk about drought, and you know, drought impacts all of these challenges, and I think it's safe to say that the changing climate that we're seeing exacerbates drought conditions, and we're seeing that also. To provide that statewide perspective, I thought it might be useful to talk a little bit about Prepare 60, and you'll see securing Utah's economic future. This is a sort of a consortium or collaboration that was brought together several years ago among the 4 largest water conservancy districts in the state of Utah. And you see them all listed here. This really got started when the previous governor of the state called us all in and let us know that he wanted the water districts to prepare what he called a roadmap for future water supply through the next 40 to 50 years. We told him that we don't generally do roadmaps, but we knew what he meant. And he was concerned that water supply or water scarcity would never get in the way of economic growth. And so that was sort of how Prep 60 got started. And it seemed to make sense because about 85% of the state's population resides within the boundaries of the 4 water district service areas. So we have 3 areas of focus. You'll see protect what we have, use water wisely, and that's the conservation component, and then finally providing for the future, and that has to do with development of new infrastructure. These are the 3 areas that we're focusing on together. And to give you a feel for population growth, I'm sure you've all seen these numbers, but it's looking like the projected growth will double by the year 2070, where we're a little above 3 million people now in the state of Utah. We'll go above 6 million people by 2070. So the question is, how much water is available? How much water remains undeveloped? And so we had gone through an exercise to determine how much additional water could be developed in the state. And you see that here on this pie chart. This was actually done prior to the drought. And I'll have to tell you, droughts provide interesting opportunities on one hand, but it also helps define how much water we really do have. And my guess is that this chart could change some as a result of what we're learning with respect to our current water supply situation. The other thing that was missing in the state of Utah was how much is it going to cost to continue providing for repair and replacement of aging infrastructure, and also to provide new water supplies and to conserve water. And so the 4 of us developed what we call the statewide water infrastructure plan. We have copies of that. If anyone would like a copy, I'd be happy to provide it. And this is what the plan, we actually produced the second version of that plan. And this is the information from that second version. You'll see that $38 billion will be necessary as an estimate moving forward to repair and replace aging infrastructure. You see that on the left, then also to provide for new infrastructure. And also we included this year the cost of conservation. So water conservation is not going to be cheap. And we're ready to step up to the plate and start spending money, a lot more money in water conservation. And so speaking of conservation, how much water are we looking to conserve? And you'll note on that left chart, we're looking to conserve about 720,000 acre feet of water by the year 2070. And that would be done by reducing per capita water use, how much water we each use each day. And that's how we measure water conservation progress and results across the state. And to give you a feel for how much water that really is, Jordanelle Reservoir holds about 314,000 acre feet when it's full. So we're talking a lot of water savings statewide in order to achieve our water conservation goals. And then the question is, how much is that going to cost? Well, we've done some rough estimates. About $12 billion is what we've estimated, and about $2.5 billion we estimate that water suppliers will need to spend. And the other area here is a little fuzzy because we know that the greatest water conservation potential exists in the landscape. And that's what really needs to change moving forward, is how we landscape. And the idea here is that as landscapes begin to change, as new landscapes go in and we retrofit existing landscapes, who will pay the cost? It's entirely possible that a lot of this could be borne by developers or the homeowners, but it's also possible that water districts, water suppliers are going to have to come up with more money for incentives to provide for these changes moving forward. So this pie chart can change an awful lot going forward. So let me talk about the climate, because we hear a lot about this, and I have been watching this very close. I've worked here at Jordan Valley Water for 37 years. And I've watched the changes that are taking place, and what we're seeing is warming right before our very eyes. To give you a feel for that, this chart shows average temperature through the growing season, beginning clear back in 1875. This is as far back as our records will go, and what you can see is increasing temperatures, especially over the last 40 years or so. And the last 20 years, a market increase. The thing that makes this really difficult for a water manager is it flies in the face of water conservation, because our plants need more water. So on one hand, we need to conserve. The same time, our plants are asking for more water. And the next question is, are we seeing less precipitation? We're going clear back to 1875 again. And I decided to draw a best fit line through all the data points here. And what you can see is a slight decline at the Salt Lake International Airport over this period. Now, it's probably not statistically significant, but it does appear that there's been a decrease in the amount of water that we're receiving. And the other thing I'll note here, and I won't go over it in too much detail, but there are 30-year drought periods that you can see on this chart, beginning clear back in the late 1800s. You've heard about the Dust Bowl years in the 30s. That's shown here. There was a drought in the early 60s, a drought in the early 90s, and there's that 30-year return period. We're right in the midst of that potential return period. It appears to me that this drought is following that trend. So let's talk more about the drought. We've been in the midst of this drought for 2 years now. It got started in the year 2020. These three maps of Utah show what they show as a snow water equivalent. It's the amount of inches contained in the snowpack statewide in mid-April of each year. So you'll see on the left, those green colors and the blue colors, those are good colors, where we were about average coming into the spring in 2020, and then things turned on us. You can see in the spring of 2021, we saw quite a reduction in precipitation and snowpack. And then again in 2022, a little better, but still seeing significant drought conditions statewide. To kind of give you a feel for how much water Jordan Valley delivers every year, you'll see that we're around 100,000 acre feet or more. Now, an acre foot of water is the amount of water that will cover an acre of ground 1 foot deep. And to give you a feel for that, a homeowner of 4 generally uses about, a half to 6/10 of an acre foot of water each year. And so you'll see in 2020 with the hot, dry conditions that we had a record water delivery year where we delivered about 112,000 acre feet. In 2021, due to good response from the public and the heavy drought messaging that we had, we saw about 11% reduction in 2021, even with hot, dry conditions through the summer. Here's our reservoir status. You'll see Jordanelle on the left, Deer Creek in the middle, Utah Lake on the right. Every one of these reservoirs play a very important role in our water supply. The black line shows full. The gold line shows the 10-year average. The light blue bar shows last year at this time. The dark blue bars show the current conditions. And you can see that every reservoir is lower than it was last year, and seeing the impact of drought conditions. So what's the outlook? Well, the outlook is on the left, higher than normal temperatures. That one's pretty easy. We just continue to see records every year. That dark red shows warmer than normal temperatures projected through July. And then as far as precipitation is concerned, you can see northern Utah is projecting less than normal, drier than normal precipitation. And then southern Utah, they call it equal chance when you see the white color. I've always thought that was maybe closer to equally clueless. It's really hard for them to project precipitation as you might expect.
Mhm.
So Robin, I want to make sure that I don't go too far. And so if you'll just stop me, I don't want to encroach on anyone else's time. So I'm going to continue to move through here, and just let me know when I need
Yeah,
to.
why don't we plan on about 5 more minutes, and
Okay.
I'll give you a 1-minute mark.
Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you about, we've gone through quite a extensive planning effort we call drought contingency planning. And this is a table that came right out of that plan. You'll note on the left here, we have water supply restriction levels and water restriction descriptions. And we have a drought monitoring committee that's composed of a representative from each of our 17 member agencies. And what we do is we bring them in and we give them a presentation. They look at all the water supply indices, and they vote on where we ought to be. And it turns out the vote was heavier for a level 1 water supply restriction level. We're going to take this to our board this month, and they will of course make the final determination. But if it stays there, what that means is that we'll continue to provide water this year up to our contractual obligations. But anything above that, there will be quite a heavy surcharge, price surcharge that's added to the wholesale rate to provide an incentive to keep the water deliveries down at around the contract volume. And our messaging this year will be, our goal will be to achieve about what we did last year, about a 10 to 12% reduction. Naturally, a 15% reduction would even be better if we could do that with our messaging. I'm going to skip past that graph. Now, so here are some of the messages that we'll be looking at doing this year. Of course, the governor declared another state of emergency with respect to the drought. That was in April. Drought severity this year really varies across the state compared to last year. So some of us are doing a lot worse than others. Northern Utah, in many respects, is doing worse than southern Utah. Here are some tips: wait to water, plan a landscape upgrade. You can see all these things, but there are many incentives now for all of us, cash rebates that we can tap into to help us conserve. We're going to, of course, be coordinating with the governor and pursuing coordinated drought messaging, hopefully effective drought messaging. And once again, our goal is to achieve at least 10% voluntary reduction this year in water use within Jordan Valley service area. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our water conservation programs. I think most of you can benefit from these, and the way to learn more about these and actually maybe even participate is to get on utahwatersavers.com. And you'll see here that there's Flip Your Strip. You may have read the Tribune article this morning about Salt Lake County flipping a lot of their strips this year. And there's money available for all of us to flip our strip and to also to make changes on our own landscape, which we call landscapes rewards. And many of you, or localscapes rewards, and many of you have heard about our localscapes program. And for commercial and institutional settings, we also have landscape leadership grants that will be available to up to $50,000. And it turns out I always, every day I drive past Merit Medical to work, and they're doing a wonderful job of making a retrofit of their landscape. If you haven't seen that landscape retrofit, you probably need to. It's on 9800 South and Redwood Road, and they have used some of Jordan Valley Water's money to make these changes. See, that slide's not coming up very well. Let me jump on. I want to just end with I think one of the largest initiatives I think Jordan Valley Water has ever undertaken, and it has to do with heavy promotion of water efficiency standards for the landscape within our service area. And what we've done is we've designed these standards for residential and institutional commercial settings. And as you see the photograph here, this is what we call a local scape. We're not saying you have to remove all your turf grass, but the turf grass area should be minimized to about 35% of the total landscaped area. And you can get money to do this. And our water efficiency standards have been designed around these local scape standards. And then within commercial landscapes, we've also developed these standards where the maximum amount of turf grass would be 20% of the overall landscaped area, and a lot of conversion to drip irrigation. These types of landscapes will save a tremendous amount of water. And so what we've done is we have, in our promotion of these water efficiency standards, we have had great success with our member cities in adopting these by ordinance for the most part. And you'll see here the cities that have adopted these: Harriman, South Jordan, City of West Jordan, Bluffdale, West Valley, Kearns Metro Township, and others. And what this means is that for all new construction, every element of new construction will all go in water-wise within each of these areas. And so this has been a major breakthrough. And I think all of these cities are providing a good example of how the rest of the state of Utah really needs to be looking in providing for water conservation moving forward. And so I wanted to bring this up. And here is a local scape. This property owner did take advantage of Jordan Valley Water's money to retrofit their backyard, and take a look. Did a great job. Not so much turf grass, it's easy to water. And a local scape will save about 2/3. So a 67% reduction over a traditional landscape for outdoor watering needs. So that's a tremendous amount of savings.
Bart, you got one minute here.
And I'm done.
Okay, look at that. Hey, we did. I'm going to ask you one question, Bart, that came up, and it was with regard to the impact of livestock and agricultural food production on water. Do you have anything you want to offer us on that?
Well, I will, and I think a lot can be said about the use of ag water across the state of Utah. Naturally, out of all the water that's diverted, the lion's share of that diversion is for agricultural purposes. And I think that we need to work with our farmers and others to look for ways to optimize their use. And I also think there may be, and by optimizing their use, what we can do is, in my mind, I'm confident that we can provide additional water for M&I or drinking water, and also additional water for the Great Salt Lake. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up today, is that I'm confident that both of those goals can be achieved in moving forward. I think there's going to be some agricultural conversion to drinking water over the next several decades. And in doing so, I think that the lake can be enhanced, and at the same time, we can provide for the growing needs of our population increase. And so I'm confident that can happen. I also think that if there's ever any development of Bear River water, we're showing it in our plans, of course, that we're going to have to completely 100% mitigate all impacts on the lake. I think that can be done. I'm confident, and I believe that any Bear River water will probably be used mostly for indoor use, and all that water generally makes it right back to the Great Salt Lake. So those are some of my thoughts there.
Thanks, Bart. That's a great introduction for Jamie. Jamie, are you there? There you are.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for being with us. It's great to have you today. We're going to put your bio in the chat just so you can go. I'm not going to waste any time.
Perfect. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to roll with it.
Great.
Okay. Great Salt Lake experienced her final glimmering sunset today, succumbing to a long struggle with chronic diversions exacerbated by climate change. She was born 13,000 years ago to Lake Bonneville, who occupied the basin previously, and the Holocene epoch, who melted ice and evaporated water. Her dusty remains will be scattered across the Salt Lake Valley for millennia, and we will be constantly reminded of her passing with our air quality monitors. She was preceded in death by her cousin, Owens Lake, who lived in California. She is survived by Mono Lake, whose family took legal action using the public trust doctrine to revive her when she was on life support. During her life, Great Salt Lake underwent many surgeries and amputations. She suffered blockages in her circulatory system, most significantly a transverse incision by a rail causeway, which restricted the flow of her fluids. Although it was common for her to expand and shrink her girth, the last 50 years of her life were especially tumultuous in this regard. When she was at her largest in the 1980s, the state of Utah insisted that she diet with intervention to protect her human neighbors from flooding. Ultimately, the thirst of a rapidly growing population upstream, which prevented her refilling, caused a severe reduction in her size. As water was withheld, she began wasting away. Projects such as the inland port, Bear River development, relocating the state prison, and construction of a non-essential landfill put much strain on her. In her frail state, she was exposed to the planet's warming temperatures and local drought conditions. The combination of terminal dehydration and high fever caused her eventual demise. Great Salt Lake had a very salty personality and was known to her neighbors as stinky and buggy. She had the best memory, holding on to every mineral, pollutant, and sediment she ever encountered. Noted for hosting many around her table, she fed anybody who migrated by. Visitors could count on being accosted by her pet biting gnats in the spring, but would always leave her home with the most unique treasures. She loved people, especially those native inhabitants of the basin who built caves and traded salt, but also those humans who built funky buildings and partied on her beaches. A nonconformist, Great Salt Lake was infamous for wearing a palette of intriguing colors, not the usual blue of other lakes. Her wardrobe was steeped in lemonade pink, photosynthetic green, and sandy taupe. Her shorelines were ruffled and rugged. It was her northern red waters and ethereal characteristics that drew artist Robert Smithson to Utah to embellish her with his spiral jetty. She demonstrated her care and concern for people by floating them gently in her arms and never allowing them to sink. However, when disturbed, her short temper could quickly whip up the heavy waters into frothy waves that could capsize a boat and would leave foam blanketing the shoreline. Although not a skier, Great Salt Lake was an avid donor to the ski industry, contributing her lake effect to the greatest snow on earth. During the summer months, she enjoyed paddleboarding, canoeing, and sailing. Her love of chemistry and aesthetics, she combined her love of chemistry and aesthetics to create many rusted pieces of art. She served as a model for many artists over the years who echoed her uncommon beauty in their work. She was a committed volunteer for her local environment, spending her time absorbing heavy metals and balancing nutrients. Always an avid bird watcher, Great Salt Lake earned a PhD in ornithology, observing 338 bird species over thousands of years. She was an entrepreneur, supporting an array of businesses from brine shrimp harvesting to salt extraction. As a hobbyist, she collected old boats, wooden railroad trestles, and even an occasional airplane. Great Salt Lake was an award-winning ecosystem. In fact, she was lauded as a site of hemispheric importance for birds. For centuries, she hosted one of the largest breeding colonies of white pelicans in the world. For decades, she hosted the annual Great Salt Lake Bird Festival, the Great Salt Lake Open Water Swim, and Antelope Island Spider Festival. She was a noted activist for diversity, understanding that life of all sorts has equal value in the world. Once standing in protest, she challenged the Utah Department of Environmental Quality to develop water quality standards made difficult by her high salt content, leading to equity for salt lakes everywhere. For this work and for her inclusion of Native people in her history, she is often referred to as the notorious GSL. There was action to prevent the death of Great Salt Lake, but it was too little too late. In 2022, fueled with federal infrastructure dollars, the Utah State Legislature passed several bills that attempted to bring more water to her basin. But the mega drought of the American Southwest and climate change were not so easily overcome. She supported Utah's economy for many years, but we did not adequately fund her healthcare in time. Had we done so, we might not be mourning her death today. Utah regrets the loss of this unique piece of its identity, as does the lake's namesake, Salt Lake City. The state is still struggling with 7,706 employment casualties when the brine shrimp and salt extraction companies literally dried up. Also, 1 million tourists no longer visit Utah since the closure of state and federal lands surrounding Great Salt Lake. With her death, Utahns now pay more for their water treatment, and the ski season is limited to just a few weeks. They are also suffering additional health costs from dust exposure and a spiritual loss of this cultural hub. She will be missed by the 85,000 American white pelicans who nested and fed around the lake, the 5 million eared grebes that fed on the abundant brine shrimp in her salty waters, and the 10 million avian colleagues who loved Great Salt Lake for millennia. The greatest loss is the opportunity for folks to connect, find common ground, and work together to save her. Her friends and family would like to express thanks to the many people who pleaded for action on behalf of Great Salt Lake. Our gratitude is extended to state and federal agencies, community members, advocacy groups, and the many research scientists and students who strive to understand her and spread the word about her importance. In lieu of flowers, conserve water, call your legislators, and advocate for smart water laws. In keeping with her salty personality, she requested that her admirers play the song "Another One Bites the Dust" at her memorial.
Jamie, that was terrific.
Thank you.
Now, did you write the original obit for the Great Salt Lake? Is that just an expansion of that original obit?
Yeah, so I work with Dr. Bonnie Baxter at Westminster College, and we, for 23 years, that's half of my 46 years that I've lived on the bed of Great Salt Lake, have studied the lake. And in 2019, we got together and wrote that obituary for Great Salt Lake that's been updated since the last legislative session. Dr. Baxter and myself have also edited a book called Great Salt Lake Biology, a Terminal Lake in a Time of Change. So those are the references that I was really thinking about for this talk. And I don't want to talk too long. I know everybody has heard a lot about, Great Salt Lake in the news and have really been thinking about the impacts of a drying Great Salt Lake on the ecosystem, on our economy, and really I have kids and I don't want to pass an environmental catastrophe to them that they'll be dealing with health effects for millennia. And so I wrote this obituary, and a lot of people have been saying, hey, well, so do you have hope? I mean, why are we spending money and time? Is it really just gonna die? And in 2019, when we wrote that, I think we were both in a really place of knowing that it was a dire situation, that our lake needed to get more water, no matter how we did that. And I do have hope. We recently, the Salt Lake Tribune got a grant to study, to really work on solutions for Great Salt Lake and collaborate with other news organizations so that we could get information out to people about how important the lake was and how it would affect our health and our economy and our quality of life. I also work with a lot of kids, and this year Representative Lesser, who is on this call, and Senator Derek Kitchen, who I also saw on this call, helped us put forth a bill to make brine shrimp the official Utah state crustacean. And this is really funny, right? I mean, who could think of such ridiculous things, except these students, these sixth graders at Emerson Elementary in Salt Lake, really are able to kind of bring forth this environmental importance of the lake. And I saw them bring smiles to the faces of people on Capitol Hill as they were talking about brine shrimp and teaching them about Great Salt Lake. And so I know you're probably wanting to get back to your Saturday activities, and I think we've already gone over a little bit. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for advocating for Great Salt Lake. Thank you for bringing people in to not only talk about water and lake, but also about women's reproductive rights. That's super, take all the time you want for that.
Jamie, that's great. Hey, I want to talk, I've got some questions, just a couple here. From what I'm understanding, there's going to be a certain point where the lake shrinks enough that we're going to start killing the brine shrimp and the algae that the brine shrimp eat. And once we hit that point, it's a bit of, that's a real tipping point. Am I on the right path there?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. So right now, last year we reached historic lows. It doesn't just expose shorelines and create toxic dust in the environment. When there's less water, it increases the concentration of salt in the water. And right now we're kind of at this threshold for optimum salt content in the water for our brine shrimp. Now, our Emerson Elementary kids, they really loved brine shrimp because they could see their spaghetti arms and their little beady eyes. But the lake provides 40 to 60% of the world's need for brine shrimp that's used in commercial aquaculture to feed our growing human populations. So we also do get food out of Great Salt Lake. It's one of the arguments I hear a lot from farmers. I just moved to my farm in the Cache Valley, and people are like, we need food. And actually food does come out of Great Salt Lake also. We have also this year not only seen the salt content increase, we've seen these cool structures that photosynthesize on the bed of Great Salt Lake. They kind of form these reefs. we've seen those reefs exposed because of these low water levels. And those reefs, they provide 30% of the energy into the lake through photosynthesis. So 30% of the primary productivity comes off of those. This year, we're seeing an experiment. We're doing an experiment on Great Salt Lake, and we'll see results by the end of this summer on what that's going to do. So we are at a very critical, dire time for the creatures that live in Great Salt Lake, the brine shrimp and the brine flies, and then the 10 million birds that come here. I have to stop myself from talking about all of the creatures because I won't shut up.
Does anybody else have a question for Jamie? Let me just see if let me get my view here so I can see if anybody does.
Would you share the link of the movement to try and make the brine shrimp official crustacean? I absolutely love that idea. I think it's smart, and I think it's catchy.
Yeah, we can push that out. Representative Lesser, do you want to talk just a little bit about your advocacy on behalf of because is the Great Salt Lake in your district?
Some of the Great Salt Lake is in my district. And what was so exciting about running this bill was engaging this group of enthusiastic students who really, quite honestly, understood the ecology of the Great Salt Lake better than most of the members of the Natural Resources Committee. They were taken by the presentation that the kids gave that included the economic impact of the brine shrimp, and as well as all of the sort of secondary gains that we have by the presence of the brine shrimp in the Great Salt Lake and protecting that. So this was really, there were many, many purposes to this bill. One, engaging the next generation in the role of government in their lives, and the entire 6th grade came to this committee hearing. Merciful, I mean, these poor kids had to sit there and listen to 20 minutes of a discussion on on the legality of moving boulders in the bill that was ahead of us. They behaved better than just about anybody else in the audience. So that was really a great thing. We're going to do it again because this bill died 20 minutes too soon because of the HB 11 delay. So it's really exciting, and I am actually going around talking about brine shrimp in our schools in Ogden and Weber County, and plan to be an evangelist for brine shrimp. And Jamie, you have truly inspired me. Thank you for that amazing presentation. That obituary is just so heart-wrenching, but remarkably clever too. And I especially liked the RBG GSL switch off. I think all of us noticed that in this group. Yeah. So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for all of the work you do in advocacy.
And maybe I can talk just briefly about the future. A lot of people say, well, you know, there was so much action at the Capitol this year regarding Great Salt Lake. I think next year we're really going to be looking for like who has the right to that conserved water that Bar talked about. You know, people conserving water can really, you know, help with the Great Salt Lake. I mean, a lot of that water goes to the 3 million people that are living along the Wasatch Front. So I think we're really going to be thinking about who has the right to conserve water. If I save water and take a shorter shower, does that just mean that somebody down the line gets to use that, or does that water go to Great Salt Lake, and how does that happen? And I think streamlining, I've heard some criticism of the secondary water metering bill, that there wasn't enough kind of structure provided for people. There's like a lot of money that went into that secondary water metering so that we know where our water is going, but not a lot of structure for how that was going to work. So I would look, you know, next year as you're at the Capitol, I think those are the things you might see.
And, you know, I just want to underline, this is why it is so important that everybody contact your legislator. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they live, but contact them and let them know that you care about the Great Salt Lake and you want more water in that lake. We cannot lose the Great Salt Lake. It would just be an environmental disaster. So Jamie, thank you for that. And I too I'm really impressed with the that you got it was 6th grade kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was really effective. This is what I think for reproductive rights, we're going to have to get 6th grade girls and we're going to haul them up to the Capitol. We're going to be making presentations. I think that was very effective. We might just have to adopt that particular strategy. Thank you, Jamie. All right, we are at the end of our time. This has been a great meeting. I hope that I will see all of you on June 18th at our next Women's Democratic Club meeting. And if I hope I see you before then. I want to see you tomorrow between 2 and 4 at the Capitol. I want to see you next Saturday between, starts at 11 up at the Capitol. We're going to be out there. We're going to demonstrate, invite all your family and friends. Take yourself off mute, everybody.